Hello everyone, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of Killer Instinct, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah. I'm your host of Killer Instinct. And before we get started, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss an episode. We post weekly here on the podcast every single Wednesday. We also upload the video version onto YouTube on Wednesdays as well. So make sure you are subscribed. Now, you guys, as you can tell by the title of today's episode, today we are talking about the brutal murder of Ashley Smiley. This case has become particularly popular in the media for a multitude of reasons, and the trial has recently come to an end just within this past month. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts about it today. And without giving anything away in the beginning, let's jump right on into it. Ashley Smiley was born on April 11th, 1983 in Stuart, Florida, to her parents, Robert and Vicky. She grew up with her sister Amber and lived in Florida throughout the majority of her life. Living in Florida, it was no surprise that some of Ashley's favorite activities included spending time on the beach and taking trips to Disney World with her family. Ashley was incredibly smart. She was said to have been particularly passionate about anything related to mathematics, technology, or the arts. Those were the things that she was really well versed in. And in 2005, Ashley got married to a man named Gregg, and the two of them had a daughter together. And that daughter is named Carly Gregg. Now, the two divorced when Carly was around 3 to 4 years old, and around the same time, unfortunately, Carly had a younger sister who died of medical complications. The death of Carly's younger sister definitely shifted the family dynamic, and Ashley and Kevin ended up getting divorced shortly after this. As far as Kevin, Carly's biological father, goes, Carly remembers him not being the best influence to be around. She claimed that he was abusive towards her mom, Ashley. She also stated that he had a drug problem. And after the divorce, whenever Carly would go and spend time with her dad, whenever he had visitation, she claimed that he was extremely neglectful and would oftentimes leave her without any food or water. After the divorce, Ashley did go on to marry another man, and that man is named Heath Smiley. After Ashley got married to Heath, Ashley and Carly moved to Brandon, Mississippi, which is where they lived in their home with their two golden retriever dogs. Ashley also got a job working as a mathematics teacher, specifically an algebra teacher, at Northwest Rankin High School. All of Ashley's students absolutely adored her. Ashley was said to have had a very positive outlook on all situations. She definitely was the type that looked at the glass half full, and her students remembered her having a very, very big heart, and she was always showing compassion to everyone who walked through the doors at her school. Now, from Heath's perspective, he has said that oftentimes coming into a family where there are already children involved and having that step-parent, step-child relationship, that oftentimes can be filled with tension and it can take a lot of time to get through. However, for Heath, he said that that was not necessarily the case with him and Carly. He said that him and Carly had a very good relationship. He always thought that Carly was a very sweet and young girl. He said that the family dynamic between him, Ashley, and Carly was a very positive one. Heath said that Carly seemed to be really happy when he and her mom ended up getting married and that they had a good life together. Heath said that one of their golden retriever dogs was a present for Carly, and she couldn't have been more thrilled at the time. Heath said that on the weekends, they all loved to spend time together. They would either play video games, or Carly would sit around and play her guitar for her family. She oftentimes had guitar lessons on the weekend, so she would go to her guitar lessons and then come home, and then they would all sit in the living room and she would play her guitar for Ashley and Heath. Now, I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about Carly's upbringing a little bit outside of this family dynamic, because as far as her and her upbringing goes, she did find herself in a little bit of trouble throughout her childhood. A few years ago, Carly brought a Swiss Army knife to school. She brought it into her classroom, and the teacher did catch this, and Carly did get reprimanded for this. She ended up being pulled out from school. She got expelled, and she ended up being sent to an alternative intensive learning school. Something to know about Carly, though, is that she is incredibly, incredibly smart. She was always known for being an overachiever in school, and she did end up skipping fourth grade because it was not challenging enough for her. So instead of going from third grade to fourth grade, she went from third grade to fifth grade, and she thrived. She excelled academically. And when Carly was 13 years old, she took the ACT test, which, if you're unfamiliar, to get into college in the United States, you often have to take an SAT test or an ACT test to really measure where you are academically. And based on those scores, it'll help you get into certain colleges. And so it's a standardized test. The fact that Carly was taking this test at 13 years old is already telling enough. However, she scored a 30 on the ACT, which, to give you a point of reference, the highest score that you can get on the ACT is a 36. And to have a score of 30 places her in the 93 percentile of test takers. And again, these tests usually get taken in the later teens, in 17, 18, 16, 17, 18, around that time frame. Now, once Carly hit her teenage years, even though she was excelling academically, she was starting to show more of that classic, stereotypical, rebellious teenager behavior. She was sneaking out of the house. She was staying out past her curfew. She was also texting her friends off of iPods and iPads so that her parents wouldn't catch it. So she was definitely starting to have more of a secretive lifestyle. She was trying to hide things. But even though Carly was starting to rebel a little bit, she never acted out in any way that showed violence. She never got overly angry or enraged. And if anything, Heath and Ashley were worried about Carly because they were worried that she was showing signs and symptoms of depression. Heath claimed that him and Ashley started getting worried about Carly's depression in the summer of 2023, so about a little bit over this time last year. And he said that when that happened, they noticed that Carly was having trouble sleeping and that she was taking a lot of melatonin, and she would increase her dose of melatonin if she felt like it wasn't working as effectively as she wanted to. Now, because of this, Heath and Ashley decided that the best thing to do would be to get Carly to see a psychiatrist, which by January of 2024 is exactly what happened. Ashley and Heath connected Carly with Dr. Rebecca Kirk, and the two met in January. After speaking, Carly was prescribed Zoloft to help with her depression. After some time, Carly told Dr. Kirk that the Zoloft was not working, and they ended up upping her dose. However, Carly did not like the effects of the Zoloft. She said that it made her feel like she was in a zombie-like state. So because of that, Dr. Kirk then switched Carly's medication from Zoloft to Lexapro. But what Carly didn't tell anyone was that along with the Lexapro, she was also smoking marijuana. Carly was said to have smoked anywhere between 3 to 4 times a week, and she said that she would smoke to help her with her symptoms of anxiety and with her sleeping problems. But Heath and Ashley were not aware that the smoking was happening whatsoever. That was up until March of this year in 2024. Now, I want to jump to March 18th of 2024 particularly. This was the day before Ashley's murder. And on this day, Carly went and saw Dr. Kirk, her psychiatrist, and Dr. Kirk stated in her summary report of this session that Carly did not display any concerning behavioral signs. Carly said that she wasn't experiencing any suicidal or homicidal thoughts from the medication, the Lexapro, that they had recently switched to, because the Lexapro got switched about 4 days prior to this. So Carly started taking the Lexapro around March 14th. So this appointment was really to just gauge how Carly was feeling after this medication switch. But according to her session with Dr. Kirk, Carly did not seem to have any concerning signs whatsoever. So now we're going to jump to the following day, which was March 19th of this year. And according to Heath, he said that this day started out like any normal day. He said that him, Ashley, and Carly woke up that morning and were all getting ready to go to school for the day. Ashley woke up and made a cup of tea, and shortly after, her and Carly ended up leaving the house together to go to school. This was very convenient because the same school that Ashley worked at was actually the same school that Carly attended. So they would always drive to and from school together. Now, Heath said it wasn't too long after Ashley and Carly left the house that he also left the house to go to his job for the day as a physical therapist. Carly and Ashley spent their day at school and then made it back home at approximately 3:54 p.m. on March 19th. And within only 20 minutes of being home, everything in their world would change. Now, what we know is that minutes after Carly and Ashley returned home that afternoon from school, Ashley was searching through Carly's bedroom. She was doing this because she was looking for vape pens and marijuana. And the reason that Ashley was doing this was because earlier that day at school, there was a student who had approached Ashley and told her about the fact that Carly had been smoking. She had been using marijuana, she was smoking it multiple times a week, and Ashley, up until this point, did not know about any of this, like I said. So when she heard this, this was definitely something that she wanted to address with Carly. On the way home from school that day, Ashley confronted Carly with this information and told Carly that once they got home, she was going to be searching the house for any of the paraphernalia that Carly had, which was why when they got home, Ashley went into Carly's bedroom and was looking for vape pens and marijuana and really anything that she could find at that point. Now, again, while Ashley was doing this, Carly was not in the room, because what Carly was doing is she then went into Ashley's bedroom, grabbed the gun that Ashley kept in the cubby underneath the bed, walked back into Carly's room where Ashley was, and shot her mom 3 times in the head, killing her. And you might be sitting here asking yourself, how do we know that? How do we know that this is what happened? How do we know that this is what took place? And the reason that we know that is because there is actual video footage of this entire murder taking place from start to finish. At the Smiley house, there was a home security system installed. There were cameras all throughout the house. There were cameras outside of the home, and there was also a camera in the kitchen. Now, on the footage of the camera that was located in the kitchen, you see that at 4:14 p.m., Carly was walking into her mom's bedroom, which was on one side of the house, and then you see her walk with the gun behind her back to the other side of the home where Carly's room was located. Shortly after that is when you hear 3 gunshots go off and Ashley screaming for her life. After the 3 shots went off, we see Carly walking back into the kitchen, again hiding the gun behind her back and then placing it on the kitchen island. She then pulls out a cell phone and appears to be texting, and there are 2 people that it is believed that Carly was texting after the murder. The first person that Carly was texting was her friend, and Carly had texted this friend of hers who has remained unnamed, telling this friend that there was a family emergency and asking this specific friend to come over to her house. Now, the second person is her stepfather, Heath. However, it is believed that Carly texted Heath off of Ashley's phone after Ashley was already murdered. Heath received a text message from Ashley's phone saying, "Are you almost home, honey?" To which he responded with, "No, I'll be at work for a little bit." And then Ashley responded with a thumbs up. Now, the reason that this is believed to be Carly instead of Ashley was because of the timing of the text sent. This text message was sent just a minute or 2 after Ashley was murdered at around 4:15 p.m. And along with that, the phrasing of it seemed a little odd to Heath. He said that something about it just did not sit right with him, but at the time he didn't think too much about it. But looking back, he entirely believes that Carly was the one who sent that text message to him. Now, I want to circle back and talk about the friend that Carly had initially texted after her mom's shooting. And the friend that Carly texted did end up going over to Carly's home before Heath showed up. So this friend arrived to the home, and according to the friend, when Carly opened the door, Carly asked the friend if she had ever seen a dead body before, and then ended up bringing her into her room to show the friend her mom's dead body. According to this friend of Carly's, the friend also said that Carly told her that Heath was next. Now, Heath arrived about 45 minutes later at 5:03 p.m., and Heath said that when he got home that day, he did not think that anything was wrong when he pulled into the driveway. He figured that everything was fine. However, when he walked into the house, just to give you a little bit of an understanding of the layout of the home, you have the driveway that led you to the garage. Once you walk into the garage, there is a back door. When you walk into the home through that garage door, you walk into the laundry room and then you end up going into the kitchen. So it goes garage, laundry room, and kitchen. And there was a door that led you from the laundry room to the kitchen. Sometimes it would be open, sometimes it would be closed. And on this particular day, it was a little bit more closed than it was opened. It was just left open, just a crack. Heath said that when he got home that day, he walked into the garage, walked into the laundry room, and when he went to open that door that was from the laundry room to the kitchen, that is when he heard the gun go off and it was pointing in his direction. Now, according to Heath, he said that first gunshot barely missed him. However, after that first shot went off, Heath said he just reached his hand out and grabbed the gun, and the person that was holding the gun on the other side was Carly. Heath said he twisted the gun from her, trying to get her to drop it. However, before he was able to fully get it away, Carly shot at him 2 more times. And with these 2 more shots, Heath did end up getting shot one of those times. The bullet that did hit Heath ended up grazing his shoulder. However, at this point, Heath said that the adrenaline was pumping so much, he almost didn't even register or realize that he had been shot at that point. He didn't feel anything in that moment. And Heath said that at that point, Carly was hysterically screaming. She was uncontrollably screaming. Heath said it was quote unquote as if she had seen a demon. And in this moment, Heath thought that the reason that Carly was so frightened was because there was an intruder there. He thought that Carly was just trying to protect herself from someone else that was in the house and someone that had came into the home. He didn't realize that the person he should have been protecting himself from was Carly. Now, the gun that Carly was shooting was one of the guns that the family did keep in the home. This particular gun was Ashley's gun that, again, she kept on her side of the bed. She kept it in a cubby underneath the mattress. And Ashley and Heath were very well versed when it came to guns. They would go to different shooting ranges together. It was a hobby that the two of them shared, and they had the guns in the house for protection. However, to their knowledge, Carly had zero experience with handling a gun at all up until that point. Now, after Heath took the gun from Carly, Carly immediately, without saying a word, bolted out of the back door of the home and began running away from the house. Now, at the speed that Carly was running, Heath said that he knew he was not going to be able to catch up with Carly, so he just let her run away. Now, again, at this point, Heath was not made aware that Carly was the one who had shot Ashley. He did not know that at this point. So immediately after Carly ran, Heath went and locked the back door of the house after her. He said he was worried if there was an intruder, that the intruder would try and come in through the back and get back into the house. So he was trying to block everything that was outside of the house from coming inside of the home. Now, at that point, Heath was trying to look for Ashley. He started calling out for Ashley's name, running into their bedroom to see if she was there. However, as we know, she was not. He then went into the other bedrooms of the home before ultimately landing in Carly's bedroom, which is where he discovered Ashley's body. Now, when Heath saw Ashley, she was lying on the bed with her arms folded across her body, and there was also a towel covering her face. Heath said that he did go over to check her pulse, but he was unable to find one. He then removed the towel from her face and saw a pool of blood, and also discovered that she had been shot in the head multiple times. At this point, Heath immediately called 911, and he was hysterical on this 911 call. He told them that Ashley was killed. He also told them that he had been shot himself, and somewhere between finding Ashley's body and calling 911, it registered to Heath that Carly was the one who murdered Ashley, because on the 911 call, he was saying over and over again, she killed her mom. She killed her mom and she shot me. He kept repeating that over and over. So again, at some point in between finding Ashley's body and making that call, everything was starting to register with him. Now, police arrived to the house very shortly after the 911 call was made, and when they did arrive, Heath went out to the front porch and really just laid down. He laid down on the ground of the front porch. Again, up until this point, his body had been in a state of shock ever since he was shot. So when police arrived, they were able to assess his injuries and ultimately transported him to the hospital so he could be examined and have the injury tended to, which he did. As far as the search for Carly, though, police did not know where she was at this point. Now, what we know now from looking at security camera footage is that just 2 minutes after Heath got home, Carly and her friend were seen jumping the fence from the backyard of the home into the driveway and running off. So, just to put it into perspective, everything that happened to Heath happened ultimately within only a matter of minutes before Carly was gone. Now, in regards to Carly's friend, that friend remained outside of the home when Heath got into the house. So, whenever Heath pulled up into the home, the friend went into the backyard. And after Carly had shot Heath, that is when the two then ran from the backyard to the driveway and then ran off. Now, according to this friend, she said that at some point in between running with Carly, this friend ended up breaking off from the direction that Carly was running in, and they ran into a different direction, and they went into another neighborhood where another one of their friends lived. And once they did that, they went to that specific friend's house and called their dad. Their dad then picked them up from this friend's house. The friend then told the dad what had happened with Carly, and the dad then took the friend to the police department so that the friend could tell police everything of what just happened, which they did. Now, immediately, a BOLO, which stands for Be on the Lookout, was made out for Carly, and it was sent off to all of the officers in the area. And Deputy Tony Shack received this BOLO at around the same exact time that he was driving down Farmington Boulevard. And when he looked over to his right, he saw a young girl that matched Carly's description on the side of the road. At this point, Deputy Shack pulled over and asked Carly if she was the one involved in the incident that occurred, which Carly responded with, "Yes, sir. Is my stepdad okay?" After this, Deputy Shack got out of the car and detained Carly. Multiple officers arrived at the time that Carly was getting arrested, and one of them performed a gunshot residue test on Carly's hands. And at this point, Deputy Shack did not know the full extent of the crime or how involved Carly was. He wasn't told any of the details at that time, but he remembers that Carly never asked any questions about her mom, but did admit to shooting a gun. She admitted to shooting a pistol with her right hand, and the results of that gunshot residue test were that there was gunshot residue found on both of Carly's hands, which was as to be expected based off of everything that we know now. Now, back at the home, the coroner did arrive onto the crime scene and they found Ashley's body. Now, immediately they were able to tell that she suffered at least one gunshot wound. However, upon closer examination, it appeared to be two. Now, Ashley was then transported to the medical examiner office, where it was concluded that her cause of death was not just one or two, but three gunshot wounds to the head, and the manner of death was homicide. It wasn't until after Heath got back home from being at the hospital that he decided to take a look at the security camera footage that he had. He took the SD card from the camera that was in the kitchen and also the camera that was in the driveway and took that and imported it onto his computer. He said that he did this because he wanted to make a copy of the footage and be able to really see for himself what exactly happened. However, when he did this, he ended up erasing the footage on the card itself. So the only copy was now on the computer, which luckily it did go onto the computer. It's lucky that it didn't get erased off of the computer too. However, when he uploaded it onto the computer, he did call investigators to tell them about the footage. And at first, the police actually contemplated charging Heath within this investigation for tampering with evidence, because obviously they would not want Heath transporting or deleting or moving around or really touching any any of the security camera footage that could help them put together the pieces as to what happened. Why police didn't take that camera footage to begin with is still a question that's up in the air. However, when they did find out about it, Heath was very quick to hand over that footage to them, and ultimately they did not charge Heath with any tampering of evidence whatsoever. Several days after this, Heath and his mom were going through the fridge to organize some of the food that neighbors had brought in over to show their condolences. And when doing this, Heath actually found another one of the surveillance cameras hiding in the fridge. And it's believed that Carly was the one that took down this specific security camera and hid it in the fridge, thinking it wouldn't be caught. And when Heath discovered this, he did not touch it, and he immediately called investigators and handed that camera over to him as well. And as far as the contents of what was on that camera, that is still unclear. It's unclear if any of that footage was ever even recovered due to the temperature of that SD card being in the fridge. That's just something that the public was not made aware of. So now I want to move on and talk about the trial in this case. During Carly's initial appearance in court, she pled not guilty to the murder of her mother. The defense was really trying to argue that Carly's mental state was to blame for what happened to her mom, and the prosecution said that that was not the case. They really painted Carly as a cold and calculated killer. The prosecution said that the motive for this murder was because Ashley was figuring out that Carly was smoking marijuana. Ashley had confronted Carly about this just minutes before the shooting occurred, and it caused Carly to ultimately kill her mom. During the trial, Carly was being charged as an adult despite only being 15 years old. Now, there are several notes that I want to point out from this trial. 1 week before the murder, it was said that Carly wrote an excerpt into her journal. This entry said, quote, "I think I had a psychotic break earlier. The whole ordeal is quite silly. I actually spoke with one of the voices in my head. Well, I didn't hear them until earlier today, but I only do then. My particular friend and I were practically screaming bloodthirstily and ravenously. Thank God physical confrontation was not possible. I sound crazy." End quote. So that journal entry was brought up during the trial. And again, the defense really tried to use that to show that Carly's mental state was not completely stable leading up to the murder. Dr. Andrew Clark, who is a child and adolescent psychiatrist, he spoke with Carly after the murder had occurred, and the defense brought him onto the stand as one of their experts in this case. And according to Dr. Clark, he diagnosed Carly with having bipolar 2 disorder. He also said that Carly had a rough childhood. Carly told Dr. Clark that by the age of 6 or 7 is when she began hearing voices in her head and having intrusive thoughts that would tell her that she was better than others. As she continued to get older, she said that she began developing symptoms of depression. Carly told Dr. Clark that she began self-harming by the age of 11. She told him that the self-harm wasn't because she wanted to end her life, but because she wanted to cope with her depression and anxiety. Carly told Dr. Clark that over time she felt distant from the world, almost as if she was living in a dream state. She also told Dr. Clark that she felt like she spent 60% of her life living in a depressed state. She said that the other 20% of that she was living in a hypomanic state, and then another 20% of that was a normal state of mind. Now, when speaking with Dr. Clark, Carly recounted her version of events of what happened on March 19th. According to her, she said that she woke up feeling more irritable and grumpy than usual. She then went to school that day, and she said that she struggled to focus during her classes. She told Dr. Clark that after school that day and on the way home is when Carly's mom, Ashley, confronted her about Carly smoking marijuana. And it was said that, again, a classmate of Carly's confided in Ashley about Carly smoking, which is how Ashley was made aware of it. So Ashley was talking about it to Carly on the way home. And then once they got home is when Ashley was searching Carly's room for the paraphernalia. Carly said that at that point, while Ashley was searching the room, she went to let her dogs out. But according to Carly, she said that after letting the dogs out when they got home is when Carly's memory stops. She says that she does does not remember what happened after that. She describes it as being in a blackout state of mind, but she does say that the moment that she does remember coming back to, and her first memory after that blackout state, was being arrested by Deputy Shack after the murder. Now, the prosecution also cross-examined Dr. Clark on the stand. Now, during this, Dr. Clark did say that it's possible for people to fake mental illness, and Carly would be in a position that faking a mental illness would work in her favor just for the sake of herself and for the charges against her. It was also made clear during this cross-examination that Carly had never reported hearing voices in her head or any sort of hallucination until after she was arrested. It wasn't until after her arrest that she started saying that she was experiencing all of these different sorts of symptoms. Carly also never stated that she had any issue to losing her memory prior to the murder. The prosecution really tried to paint it as coincidental, that the one time that Carly would forget her memory, the one time that she would black out or have this memory loss, was when the murder of her mother happened. Now, Heath also took the stand and told the courts the version of events that I have told you today, and many people are actually surprised by Heath's behavior, and the reason that they are is because he isn't as angry with Carly as some people might think that he should be. And again, this is just his outward emotions. It's very possible that Heath is having a different internal dialogue. I'm sure that this is a lot to handle for him. However, while on the stand, he did look over to Carly and mouthed the words, "I love you," to her. And again, the public is having a hard time kind of grasping how that would be possible, how he would still be able to have those loving and caring and compassionate emotions towards Carly after everything that she had done to not only him, but to Ashley as well. Now, during the trial, Carly did express emotion at certain points of it. She particularly seemed upset when she listened to the 911 call, and then when she saw the body cam footage of police arriving to her house, and during the verdict. Now, after both the defense and prosecution rested their case, the jury then deliberated for about 2 hours before ultimately finding Carly Gregg guilty of first-degree murder, as well as tampering with evidence for putting the camera into the refrigerator, and also for attempted murder for the shooting of Heath. Carly was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and she is currently being held at the Youthful Offender Unit at the Central Mississippi Correctional Facility. Now, the Youthful Offender Unit is a separate unit at the prison. Her attorneys have requested a new trial, claiming that new evidence has recently been discovered. So we will have to wait and see if that ends up happening. But that, you guys, is the case of the murder of Ashley Smiley. It is the case of Carly Gregg. I'm very curious to hear what you guys have to say about it. I'm curious to know your thoughts on Carly's behavior. I'm curious to know your thoughts about whether you believe that Carly is a cold and calculated killer, as the prosecution painted her out to be. I'm very just curious to know all of your thoughts. So please let me know in the comments below. And with that being said, you guys, that is all for me today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Killer Instinct. Again, if you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah. I'm your host of Killer Instinct. Make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. That way you never miss an episode. We post weekly here on the podcast every single Wednesday. You guys are not going to want to miss it. I'll be back next week with a brand new one for you guys. And until then, stay safe. Bye, guys.